model sat down, there was two things sort of going through my head. One thing where I was like, oh my God, he's male. And I designed this look for a female because I'd had like a red lip and stuff like that. I'm also used to working on women when I'm not used to working on men. So a bit of me was panic. And then another half of me was like, oh, actually, this could turn out really well. I just need to think on my feet and make some kind of adjustments. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just sort of marking out where my mask is going to go. Because I was going to cover the face in scales, it would be really hard to paint, right down to the skin with all the scales in the way. I'm just using a face paint, nothing too fancy, just something red. Anything really would have worked, but face paint tends to be better because it glides over the skin. I also made sort of little brush strokes towards the ends. So as you can see from like the top of the head, it's quite a blocky colour, and actually when it starts to get towards underneath the eyes, I just use the brush to kind of create some lines and create a bit of texture. When the scales go on top, they will blend into the skin and they won't just stop at a harsh line. All I'm doing here is I'm just adding like a little bit of depth to make it look sort of charred. All I did was place black eyeshadow over the top with sort of like a big brush. I think the key was to get it quite messy so that you could still see the red underneath. What I want to do is keep the lid nice and clean because I later go in and draw a dragon's eye on the actual lid. So I just want to keep this as skin, and it also gives me an idea of where to put my scales. So now I'm applying the scales that I made out of Play-Doh. Usually when I have used Play-Doh in the past for looks, I've let it dry beforehand, so they're sort of like solid scales. And the issue obviously being that we're not allowed to pre-make anything before coming into the competition. So I'm applying the Play-Doh sort of wet to the face. That was quite tricky and quite a challenge, and definitely something that I wasn't used to. Because it's a wet product, because I didn't have time for it to dry, it was going to be very hard to paint. So I chose it in a colour that would mean if there are any bits that weren't covered or that I couldn't paint, then it would sort of work in my favour. I chose to do Mulan because I do believe that gender doesn't have a place anymore. I feel like, being inspired by my mum and how strong she is, I definitely see a lot of my mum in Mulan, and I really wanted to recreate that look. My mum was a police officer, that's sort of stereotypically a male job. So I find them really inspiring. Just day-to-day life, I always just try and be the best version of myself and try not to think about other people and other things that are going on, and just work towards myself and my own goals, really. The main issue that I had with this look is because I hadn't practiced it using wet scales. So as I touch each scale, it's obviously good in one way because I can mould it into place. Like you can see there, I'm using the edge of the brush to really push it onto the skin. But the other issue is that especially when you paint it or when you knock it, they would literally melt and they would knock over. So I had to be, really careful with every move I made. I just darkened around the eyes using face paint and some eyeshadow. I think really because I wanted to get quite an animalistic and quite a sort of an aggressive looking dragon, so I wanted the kind of darkness and shadowing around the eyes, especially if you've noticed, like a dragon, they have quite a heavy brow. So I just wanted to create that depth so that the eyes looked sunken back into the head. So I wanted the brow to really kind of stick out and have structure. So I do think this was like a key part of the look. It also helped to change the shape of his face. So using the brow kind of coming onto the nose, just changed the shape of his face, stopped it from looking as human and a little bit more dragon-like. So now I'm using face paint to add depth and add shading to the scales. I'm starting off with a black face paint. I chose to use a liquid just because it would glide on a little bit easier. When using creams, because they're quite thick, sometimes you have to apply more pressure with your brush. Creating shade and depth and colouring in the scales was probably one of the most important things in the look. This is because, you know, I have stuck Play-Doh to the face, so my colouring techniques are really what's going to stop it from looking like Play-Doh and make it look more like makeup, more of a overall polished look. I chose to draw on the dragon eyes. I didn't feel like it would look like a dragon if it was just a guy with scales with his regular eyes. I do feel like this was important to make it really obvious what my look was presenting and what it was showing. I'm just creating points underneath the eyes. I added these in just sort of spare of the moment. When I looked at the look, it was very rounded underneath, and I just wanted it to be stronger and more powerful. I think the thing that I loved most about this look was the fact that I was happy with the outcome. I think that's the most important thing. You know, I've done looks in the past that I wasn't happy with and was disappointed with, but this is one of the looks that I am proud of. You know, that is something that's important to you as an artist, is to be proud of the work that you present. To have such amazing comments from the judges, especially at that moment, it did mean well to me. I struggle with creative briefs. It's definitely where I'm out of my comfort zone. So to do well at a creative brief and to have someone say that you're a genius was absolutely amazing. Val gave me a ding dong as well.
I've not seen anything like this before. I have to give you a ding dong. Absolutely, absolutely.
I always said, you know, when I went into the competition, all I want is one ding dong off Val and I'm happy to go home. So from that point, I was like, I can go home anytime and I'll be happy because I've got that ding dong.